of knowledge here, and once again identify a structure that looks like extensions and call this as trabeculae. You can call it lymphatic trabeculae. So lymphatic capsule extended inward as trabeculae. Yes, this is all cortex of any organ, in this case lymphatic cortex, lymphatic medulla in the middle. Now we pay attention to lymphatic cortex for further detail. When we do that, we note that the tissue of the cortex is organized in the form of these spherical masses. Look like little balls, right? Little nodules. This whole thing is called a node, and nodes within nodes, then tiny nodes within nodes, can be called nodules. So each of this spherical mass, this ball-like structure, is a cortical nodule. So cortex is organized in the form of cortical nodules. Nodules in the cortex. This. Check the medulla out. As you go to the medulla, do we still have cortical nodules? No. Right? You don't see those in the medulla. Instead, the tissue of the medulla is in the form of cords, in the form of strings of cells. These are therefore called medullary cords. This is a medullary cord, and another medullary cord, and another. This is the cut view of medullary cord. See how these go? These are medullary cords. This is a cortical nodule. When you cut the cortical nodules open, what you see is that each nodule has a center which looks slightly different from rest of the nodule. The central part of cortical nodule is called germinal center. Germinal center. This is a very important part for the immune system. It is the germinal center where lymphocytes form, and lymphocytes are the cells that produce antibodies as an immune response. So the lymphocytes that we see there in the model are forming in the germinal center of the lymph node. So as lymph passes through lymph node, if it has the disease-causing agents, the lymph nodes know to produce lymphocytes in response to that, which know to produce antibodies in response to that antigen. So specific antibody will be produced for that specific antigen, which is in the lymph and therefore in the blood and other places in the body. So this is one cortical nodule. This is cut open view where you can see the germinal center. So see how many labels we already have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And more to come. Now we look into the places in this model where you do not have cortical tissue or medullary tissue. For example, this is the place which is the so-called empty place, but it's really not empty. Such places, such spaces I should say, in the lymph node are called lymphatic sinuses. You know, sinus means a space, right? So as we look at this, we have lymphatic sinuses to identify. The sinuses get their specific names. They're all lymphatic sinuses, but they get their specific name by their location. For example, if you pay attention here, this is a cortical nodule, this is another one. Between the two there is space here. See that? This space is in the cortex, therefore cortical sinus. This is a medullary cord, this is another one. Between the two there is this space, which would be called, complete this answer, which would be called medullary sinus. In the cortex, cortical sinus. In the medulla, medullary sinus. Now look at this space, which is neither in the cortex nor in the medulla. Where is it? It is inside of the, under the capsule. Therefore, subcapsular sinus. So we are looking at sinuses of three kinds then. And these, as I said, are not empty spaces. That's where lymph is actually. Lymph comes in by way of afferent lymph vessels, and it's let loose. It finds those sinuses and travels through them, and then it exits by efferent vessels. Between the point of entry and exit, it has been cleaned up, filtered out, identified for antigens, and so on. So obviously the first sinuses that will receive the lymph would be the subcapsular sinuses, right?
So what's the difference between these and
If they are subcapsular. This
Which
one.
one did you say was lymphatic sinus? They're all lymphatic sinus?
Lymphatic sinus means the sinus is in the lymph node, right? Very much like tonsils, they're all tonsils, and then they come in 3 types by location. So they're all lymphatic sinuses, and there are 3 kinds of them based on their position. This would be subcapsular sinus, this would be cortical sinus here, these would be medullary sinuses, but they're all lymphatic sinuses.
If you ask that though, like the sticker's not going to be on a borderline. It'll be like way in the middle where we'll know for sure. Okay.
And so 3 types of sinuses, 3 types of lymphatic sinuses also now are there for you to identify. Like I said, if there is a hilum, then the vessels that attach there will be taking the lymph out. That means they're the exiting one. And you can remember exit with an E and efferent with an E, if that helps. But, so we already know. Whereas you can confirm that twice as much by looking at the valves. See, the lymph would go this way, the valves open this way. So if asked to identify this part, you will call this as lymphatic valve. Right? Like we did the venous valve. In the brief one of the efferent, exit, going out. And the position of the valve tells you that lymph is going to go this way. So, and then from outside we could tell that because indentation told us this is the efferent one. It's taking the lymph out.
Would that one be an afferent?
And from the position, from location we know that, but when you check it out, the valve opens this way. Right? So this would be afferent lymph vessel, and these are efferent lymph vessels. So when you look at all of this, it's almost like 15, maybe more labels that we talked about.
What about these on the outside? Are those
These
still
will all be incoming because they are not at this
Okay, so
location.
there can be more than one.
Yes, more than one. As you can see, this lymph node is receiving multiple,
Oh, yeah. Can only be one afferent? Which one?
no, multiple afferent. All of these are multiple, we are seeing 2 of them. In this case, we are seeing 2, but you could have
Will they
more.
always be located together? Not like on
At the
walls, but just in
indentation,
general.
no. Look at this one. When you consider this lymph node, it has so many coming in. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm seeing 4 incoming, and I see 3 at different locations. Yeah, they always go up. Yeah, because lymph travels out of the olden toward the heart, not into the heart though. Travels to this location where we have the junction of subclavian with